All right, well, I had my doubts that I could actually pull this off, but I pulled it off. 37 albums. Holy God. This is definitely going to be the last time one of these is this much. Because, man, some of you guys have no chill, giving me double albums out the wazoo, not helping my case, trying to get this shit done before March. But I managed to do it with the help of, a couple of my friends listening to the albums. I listened to everyone's albums with them, and then some I made listen to more with me because that's the only way I was getting this done if I just cram this shit out. But yeah. And before we get started, the last two that I did, there was definitely some that I hated. Those bottom ones I despised. But this one, even number 37, I didn't hate. So I want to make that perfectly clear that none of these albums were terrible. But one of them was, I don't know what the hell I'm listening to. And I guess we can just get started, kick this shit off. I don't know how long this is gonna be, but 37 albums. Let's just get it rolling, man, because we're gonna be here a while. And yeah, Meet the Residents coming in last place. This comes from Rogboy666. Which you have an album coming up very soon. Meet the Residents. Very interested to see what you make of this one-off, wonderfully odd creation. Wonderfully odd creation is putting it lightly. I don't know what in God's name this was, but hey, at least the cover was really good. The cover gave me a good laugh, but unfortunately, that's the best part of this album because I don't know what the hell was going on for most of it. But with that being said, tracks like Infant Tango and Rest Aria, those aren't bad. It's like obscure experimental ambient stuff, which I am not a big fan of. Also, these guys have 60 albums. Absolutely not happening. But for what it's worth, it was an interesting listen. And here's also how I kind of organized these. The first two, I kind of went in as my enjoyment. So how much I like them. But I'm taking into account replayability. So how many times would I want to listen to these. So these ones on the bottom, I just don't want to listen to. A lot of these are just kind of one and dones. But as we move higher, it's okay, I can listen to these. These can be in my rotation. So keep that in mind with these bottom ones. I don't hate them. They're not bad, but I don't want to listen to them again. And with Rage Against the Machine, this is the ultimate case of it's not you, it's me. All right. But this one comes from Kabui. The debut, one of my favorite albums ever, one of the best debut albums ever. That's all I have to say. I'm not going to disagree with you. I can see why people would like it. I mean, hell, my two bandmates love this album, love this band. But I've had the same problem with Rage since the day little baby me first played Bulls on Parade in Guitar Hero 3. I cannot stand the vocalist. I really hate his voice and just the way he sings or kind of raps over or whatever. But instrumentally, it's really good. So I guess they have another band with a different singer, Audioslave. That might be a lot better. So keep that in mind for the next one. Although to be fair, Killing in the Name, by the time it gets to the end, I can kind of get into that song, despite me hating the vocals, but it kind of it just kind of gets you going, But yeah, the songs, they have so many headbangable riffs, but I just cannot listen to this album. I'm sorry, I can't do it with this band. Okay, so we have a couple foreign albums this time around, as usual, because you guys like to give me foreign stuff. This time we have, Cordell de Fogo Encantado. Can you tell that I'm white yet? This one comes from Go 2001. Some more Brazilian music. This band is completely different from anything you've seen or heard. Okay, so there was the one track. This one, I'm just not gonna try and say it. But like the last half with the acoustic guitars and like the chanting, it's kind of fun. I like it. And I'm gonna mention this now so I don't have to with the other foreign albums. But like lyrics are definitely the like standout, like main focus of this kind of music. And me not being able to understand what they're saying, without it, there's not much for me here. Like there was a couple tracks, I don't know what they were called, but it was straight up just like slam poetry going on. But yeah, instrumentally, it's like virtually the same throughout, like bongos, tapping, and a bunch of acoustic guitars. So like, if you can't sing along, I can't really listen to this. So that's pretty much why it's down here. Okay, up next from MJ, we have Tennyson with Rot. I saw in your top 10 albums that you seem to enjoy After Hours. This album is also alternative pop, but I find it to have more interesting soundscapes, surprisingly very well produced for just a single person making it. It takes inspiration from artists such as Radiohead, Bjork, Aphex Twin, among others, so I recommend it to people that are familiar with these artists' production already. I can hear influences in that department, but all in all, it's just a very solid project and my personal favorite from last year. Hope you enjoy. And unfortunately, this album commits my ultimate sin, which is the chipmunk voice. See, the second I hear a song start to do
this shit, I'm out immediately. I'm not listening to Alvin and the Chipmunks.
And he does it in Get Gone, and ooh, that's a big no-no, big no-no. But the last song, Future Eights, I thought was pretty decent. I kind of wish the whole album was along that style. But like you said, yeah, thinking of The Weeknd, it just doesn't really work for me for some reason. Like, the beats frequently stop and change, so it's kind of hard to get into a groove. And it's hard to describe, but it's almost like it's produced like the instruments are like broken, or they're breaking, or they're like low battery. It has like some kind of tone to it that sounds weird and uncomfortable. So not really my thing, but don't stop trying, because I would love to have more artists or like albums in that style of like The Weeknd, because that's like baby's first step. Now where do I go from here? Okay, from Darien Black Sky, we have October Rust by Type O Negative. And honestly, my biggest beef with this album is all the tracks are nearly the same tempo, and it's 75 minutes long, almost. And it really starts to get drainy, like just trying to get through the whole thing. But there were some songs I thought were cool, like Love You to Death, the chorus actually kind of reminded me of the Foo Fighters, which was pretty cool. My Girlfriend's Girlfriend was pretty decent. I really like the keys in the chorus. I think the keyboard player is my favorite. I really like the stuff he was doing. And then we have Burnt Flowers Fallen is a little jammier, which I thought was cool. Wolf Moon, that intro is really great. And then when it comes back in the middle and the end with the strings, I thought it elevated really nicely. But like I said, it's too long and it's too similar. I just needed half the length or different tempo, slower, faster, whatever. And also, what is up with like 5 songs ending by being cut off? That was kind of annoying. Like, some songs do it. I'm thinking of an album my friend Nick made me listen to, Lizzie McAlpine or something, where it was called Reckless Driving. And, they're singing about, being bad drivers, and the song cuts off, obviously to simulate, like, they got in a crash and died or whatever. So symbolically, it could be cool, but when you do it a lot and the same album, it kind of comes off as super lazy, because why write an ending when we just cut it off randomly? Okay, I mentioned earlier that whatever the name 666, you're getting an album later. Well, it's now, because up next from James Savick, we have Aphrodites Child with 666. Their last album, because I think I read that they broke up before it even came out. So that's cool. And I recognized, what was his name? Something with a V, Vangelis or something, because he made an album with John Anderson, and I recognized that name. And to be honest, I feel like, despite it being this low and being in the one-time listen category, I think I actually should listen to this again, because this might be a grower. I feel like this is a grower where I have to listen to it multiple times. But for a one-time listen, we have Do It, which they're kind of like, going ham. That's when the drums really pick up. But I guess my biggest problem with this album is that there's a lot of downtime and a lot of mood-building stuff. And that's kind of what gets annoying about prog sometimes. It's just the feeling of it being long just because it's prog and it has to be long. And then we have like track with like The Beast, where the way he's singing it is just too goofy. She mad, she goes, she mad, she mad. Like, I'm just like, why are you singing it like that? There's a Who song where Pete Townsend sings really goofy too, and I'm just like, why? I don't get it. And then we have Infinity, which this is exactly what I'm talking about with like the prog stuff, where it's like 5 minutes of some lady just going ape shit, and I'm just like, what am I listening to right now? And I read, I don't know if it's true, but that track used to be 40 minutes long, and I can't even imagine why. And just like other prog stuff, there's so much like wanking going on. It's like only way I can describe it, where everyone's just goofing off, like with King Crimson and Moonchild, like that section in that song in Core of the Crimson King, where it's just complete nonsense for like 5 minutes. I feel like there's a lot of that too, and this is what I mean. Why maybe I should listen to this again, because like the Four Horsemen, I think that was like the standout song. That was pretty cool. But yeah, one time listen, there's a lot of problems I have with this album, but not problems that I can't overlook, I suppose. And up next with another foreign album with Re by Café Tacuba from good old Leonardo Cruz. I did see this was your favorite album of all time, so I'm going to keep that in mind while I talk about this. This is probably something you have never heard. They're a Mexican band that after their debut had the chance to visit all Mexico, thus made this album so varied with so many styles. And that is one thing I have to give it credit for, because the first 2 tracks, I was like, okay, so this is like pretty standard mariachi music. And then the third track, El Cislon, it has like that Stevie Wonder superstitious like keyboards happening. And then the fourth track, El Borrego, just all my expectations were out the fucking window, because like it was like super heavy guitar, and I'm like, what am I listening to? This is crazy. I was actually really excited. And then La Pinta later too. But beyond those, it is kind of like that style of music where, you know, what I mentioned with Cordell de Fogo, I don't know what they're saying, so it's hard for me to like get into this album. Ixtepec, if that's how you say it, that has a cool mood. I like the acoustic riff and the synth underneath it. But yeah, definitely only a one-time listen for me, just because, like, you know, I don't know what they're saying. And I know you gave me Invisible the first or second time, probably the first time. And the difference between those two is that, yes, I don't know what they're saying in that band or album, but the instruments were going ham enough where I didn't care, because that was all I needed to listen to Invisible. And not to mention, I forgot which album it was, but it's like one of the most best produced albums I ever heard in my life. So that helps too. But yeah, that's just kind of where I'm coming from with this placement. Like I said, I don't want to put anyone's favorite album of all time in like down in number 30, but it's not for me. Okay, so my second Nine Inch Nails album. This time it's The Downward Spiral from Yuma 04. One I've been getting recently into, getting amazing album. Since it's... and no, I am not familiar with this album. Besides Hurt, obviously, but I've never heard the original. This album is certainly unique. Like, man, it's another hard one to describe. It's like really heavy, but it's kind of not. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, but there's a lot going on, especially on the electronic side. And then even in Hurt, the last song, like even the guitar is kind of like crackly sounding, almost like it's breaking. But at least there's the Johnny Cash version, which obviously they get the credit for, but even Trent Reznor was like, yeah, Cash owns that song now, and for good reason. That's actually one of the best covers of all time. Also, my ex said that he ruined that song, so that's all I gotta say about that. Okay, and the last album that was given to me was Filter Title of a Record from YouTube Burlick. This album has some of my favorite all-time songs. It influences post-grunge and also experiments prog and metal. Got a CD a few months ago and it's incredible. Sorry, every now and again I have to check if Audacity's still recording, because last time I had to redo like half my video. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect going into this, because their picture on Spotify is like an old dude. So I didn't know what the hell I was getting into, but I guess that picture is from now, because this is a fairly old album. And there are some pretty cool songs on here, namely with I Will Lead You and Cancer. But while there are some pretty solid songs, there are some ones that I really actually don't like. So it's pretty heavy on both sides of the spectrum. So yeah, I think that's why it's down here. Is I think one time's enough, but it was still a solid enough listen. Okay, so now we have an album I'm not even going to attempt to say, by Sigor Ross from Android 45. Also, my name has nothing to do with Dokkan Battle. I know, I was just joking because I was really playing it a lot. But anyway, this is some more like foreign stuff, man. You guys are giving me all this stuff I can't pronounce, because my favorite song was Vjoravel, something like that. The piano lead-in was so beautiful, and like the strings come in, and the final minutes where everything comes in. That's a really, really great song. And then the last few tracks really picked up steam, because a lot of this album is pretty ambient. There was a lot of songs in that middle area where I just wasn't feeling it. But yeah, that track is definitely on my stay list. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty solid album. Not bad. Okay, this was the first album given to me from Dr. Richtofen. Fine, sir, I would like to recommend to thee an album made no other than Thank You Scientist called Terraformer. Can't tell you how many different albums I wanted to pick for this, but after much consideration and contemplation, I realized that I had to pick the great Terraformer. Maybe you have already heard it, seeing as it is a fairly big band and album. I haven't heard it, but I have seen them live. Because they opened for Haken when I saw them back in 2016. So I saw these guys live, and I think I have the same response that I did the first time I saw them. Or the only time I saw them. Where there's a lot of these guys. There's like a whole band, and there's like horns or a violin or something. Several like orchestra instruments guys. And then on top of all that, there's like a vocalist. It's a bit much. Especially since I don't really like the vocals. I think they're kind of lame. And it's like the band is already so big with the strings and horns. Just keep it that way, please. The FXM clean part is good. Bird watching has a really cool feel, especially with the bass line. And I really like the solo section in Everyday Ghosts. And then, it's exactly my point with Shatner's Lament. It's like a 1-minute interlude, but that was one of my favorite tracks. I really like that one. And the potential is definitely here. There's a lot of great moments, but it gets a bit much sometimes. And I wish there weren't vocals. Because when you have like 8 instruments, I think that's all you need. And I just don't think they need lyrics or a vocalist. Wow, my camera's already about to hit the half-hour mark. And we're only down here. I don't even know what number this is. But shit, this is going to be long. Because up next, we have Xanthochroid of Erth and Axen, a 2-act album. So many double albums you guys giving me. Unbelievable. But this comes from... I'm sorry, I'm not going to try it. Pretty nerdy stuff, I must say. Concept album of a fantasy story in a world they created. But despite being independent, I find it extremely well produced, and the compositions are gorgeous and intricate, especially the lyrics. They're so well written. It harmonizes influences from prog, symphonic, black, and folk metal into an immersive cinematic story, and the freaking vocals are so diverse and beautiful. And yes, I will say it was very well produced. The song titles especially were like, you know already what you're getting into when you just look at some of those song titles. You know, with tracks like To Souls Distant and Dreaming, In Deep Wooded Forests of My Youth, and the Through trilogy, Through Caverns Old and Yawning, Through Chains That Drag Us Downward, Toward Truth and Reconciliation. Like, I already knew what this was going to be going into it, and it was good. It was good, but a very, very epic album. Great moments all throughout, but my only problem is like the musical aspect and like the theater style vocals where there's a story and characters. You know, this is what Arion does, and it's the only reason I can't get into him. And like the astonishing with the Dream Theater, some people love it for that kind of aspect, but it's a bit much for me. I think I like the second act more because it's a bit heavier. But, yeah, it's like the theater aspect is what really held it down for me. But even despite that, it's still, you know, like at least 10 spots high because it was pretty solidly performed and written and all that jazz. And from one concept album to another, we have The Crimson Idol by Wasp from Sailor Hat Philosopher. Can You Do The Crimson Idol by Wasp is an excellent concept album and my personal favorite Wasp album. Ooh, more favorites. More people giving me their favorites of the album bands, which I guess kind of makes sense. You know, I'd always give my favorite too. Or at least they're most well-known. I think that's a safe bet. But more of that on the next number. Because for this one, Arena of Pleasure I thought was pretty cool. Chainsaw Charlie was another great song. And it's funny because the drummer is so Tom crazy. It's almost as if this was the first album ever recorded after toms were invented. Because I swear to God, every other 5 seconds, this dude is doing a tom fill, and it's crazy. And this is the border of only once through, and I'll listen to a second time. Because I would listen to this a second time. Maybe not much after that, but probably at least a second listen just to kind of hone in on what I thought. But yeah, it's a pretty solid album, just like all these albums are going to be down in this section. And up next, we're going into Pearl Jam with Vitology, and this comes from A. Oswald Cinema. I think this was their third album, if I remember correctly. Whipping was pretty fun. Corduroy, if I'm saying that correctly, that was a pretty good song too. But there's a couple songs on here where I'm like, does this need to exist? Like Pry and Bugs. I'm not sure if I ever need to hear these two songs again. I would say, going forward, even if it's not your favorite album by the band, I would extremely recommend giving me their biggest album. Because had you given me 10, which I know like half that album already, I guarantee you it would have been like top 3. But because it's this weird album that they decided to change their whole sound, that it's kind of like... I don't know. It probably wouldn't be the album I would give myself. Like, you know, someone's like, hey, what Metallica album should I listen to first? Yeah, do Reload. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if I'd start there. I'd probably give him Master of Puppets, and I'd probably give myself 10. But yeah, as far as this album goes, there's some highlights, but there's a lot that I don't care for at all. Okay, up next from my good friend Nick, who does not have a comment here because we just listened on the fly, we have Max Seal with Super Enthusiast. And this is basically the story is he wanted to know if I wanted to see these guys live. So we listened to this album, and my conclusion was probably if they're the opener, I'd go see them, but I'd have to go for the headliner. But I it would be neat to see them live, but I wouldn't willingly go just to see them. Because this album is it's good. Like the bass on here I think is produced crazy. The rhythm section is the main thing hooking me in. And without them, like the song Problem Solved, it's not fun. Because the vocals are a bit iffy, but they're at least tolerable. But yeah, my favorite songs were Mystery Inc. and Always Hazy. I thought those songs were pretty great. Okay, and from Not Gonna Do It, we have Enslaved Below the Lights from 2003. This is actually very late. This is a very late album I listened to. But yeah, with Dead Stare, Crossing, and Queen of Night were good. There was a lot of good riffs in there. But although all the other songs I didn't really care for too much. Like anytime there's like a narration or when it's like super heavy. I know I'm like pretty like the metal guy, but when it's too much, it's a bit too much. Yeah, I don't really like the vocals on here, but there are some good moments, and yeah, like those 3 songs I would revisit, but that's about it. Okay, and up next we have, oh my god, dude, Weidorje from 1978 from Zeb. Their one and only album. So here is my ranking for Weidorje. And in first place we have Weidorje because it's their only album. But it's funny because Spotify shows you like the top 5 songs, like the 5 most popular songs by a band, and there's only 5 tracks on their one album, so you can see like their best to worst or like the least popular song just right there. I think that's pretty neat. But the first thing that came to my mind listening to this was it's very much Magma. It's Magma-esque, although it's not nearly on that level because like they're pretty damn good. But yeah, like there's not much to complain about here. Like the first 10 minutes were pretty repetitive, and it probably could have been like 7 minutes shorter. But other than that, this was a pretty solid listen. That yeah, I'd listen to this again. Although I just like skip ahead like 5 minutes maybe. But yeah, it's a pretty solid album. And from Grayson V, we have The Cure with Disintegration. Now, The Cure, they made that Friday song, Friday I'm in Love, and that's just Rebecca Black's Friday, like what, 20 years before that song came out? I fucking hate that song so much. That song used to play at my old job, and I was like, this is the stupidest song I've ever heard in my life. On the flip side, that song was not on this album, thankfully, but what this album did have was Love Song. Now, I don't know where I heard Love Song from, but I actually really, really like that song. I'd put it in the top 5 albums of, like, this entire list. But I don't know if I should count songs I already heard before because I'm very familiar with this one. But still, it doesn't change the fact that it's really good. And it's on this album, so that's definitely a help stand out. But besides that, we have Fascination Street. I kind of like that one. But yeah, very similar to... God, what was that album? I already forgot. Typo Negative, where it's pretty samey for the most part, 70 minutes long. The one song that was like 9 minutes, same Deep Water. It was just the same thing over and over again. I'm just like, okay, can we stop this, please? Every song was like the same tempo. It's very moody rock. It's like kind of depressing rock, which is kind of cool, and it's definitely unique. But for Love Song alone, it's here because I generally really, really love Love Song. And for this next one, we're just going to let good old Stingray introduce it.
Because some freeloader was blaring shitty Metallica all night.
Yeah, that was actually Exodus' Bonded by Blood, but it's not your fault. You don't know the genre.
And this comes from Alvaro Vasquez. You like that clip? I'm rewatching Cobra Kai, and we just watched that episode again. I was like, holy shit, that's an album I had to listen to. I'm gonna put that in the video, so things work out sometimes. But yeah, my top 3 favorite thrash metal albums of all time. I love every single song on that album. One of the most important albums in the history of metal. And yeah, this is their debut album, and it's funny that they mentioned Metallica and Exodus in that show, because that's exactly what I thought. My immediate thought was, this is pretty much like Kill 'Em All. Like, even down to the way the vocals sound, where they're like super high, but like, it's like really like kind of poorly produced, but that's kind of the charm of it. Like especially the song Metal Militia. That was in my head so much listening to this album. But my favorite song was A Lesson in Violence. That song had it all, you know, from like the kick-ass riffs to the kick-ass solo to like the thrashy nature of it. Like it's good old thrash, but not exactly my speed now. The production and vocals aren't super great, but like this is their first album, and seriously, what thrash band's first album ever sounds good? Yeah, but like I can only imagine that they got better after this. So yeah, let me know what like the Exodus album is. I want to hear that. And also on a side note, Bonded by Banjo was a pretty solid, but like a bonus track from whatever album that came from. Okay, and up next we have Deafheaven with Sunbather. Now this comes from the Greek guy again. I don't have to spell your name, so I could just show it on the screen like this. Recommends Sunbather. It's one of the very few black metal albums that I really liked and found it interesting. Check it out if you'd like. I'll be totally honest. When I saw that you gave me a Deafheaven album, I was fully expecting it to be like bottom 4. Because I'll tell you what, I saw them live as well for Between the Bear to Me back in 2014. So 9 years ago, I saw these guys live. And this was the newest album when we saw them. So I heard a lot of it that many moons ago. But I really did not like them live. So going into this album, I was pretty worried. But honestly, when it's not like tremmed, blasting, and screams for like minutes on end, that's when this album I think gets really good. Like beginning of Vertigo kind of shit. That's what I'm talking about. Those are my favorite parts, where it's still heavy, but it's not just fucking chaos. And that was really good. And honestly, I probably would see them again live, because now that I've had 9 years to digest and like expand into this music journey, now I think I could appreciate it a little more. But definitely not at the time. But yeah. Or when you're near the pit. I do not want to be in the pit during this. A lot of stuff I kind of really did like, but there's that little part where I'm just like, I don't really like this. Alright, and from Woke TRex, we have Protest the Hero's Fortress. Fantastic mathcore and a top 10 album for me. I guess talking about my favorite albums ever really started making people give me their favorite albums ever. Yeah, not a lot to say about this one, except Bone Marrow and the ending of Palms Red was fucking sick. It's a pretty good album. I would listen to it again, even though, to be honest, I'm not in love with anything on here. Like, those two songs are pretty solid, but like, I could do without them. But I would listen to this again. I thought it was pretty decent. I liked it. And from James Cross, we have Alter Bridge, One Day Remains. Here's another case of riffs are sick, but vocals are generally pretty whatever. Especially in Metalingus. Instrumentally, it's great, but that's about it. You know, Watch Your Words, the same deal. Broken Wings is a pretty whatever song, but there's one like really low riff I think is cool. End Here is a pretty solid song as well. Like, there's like one part in every song that I really like, but that's about it. Like, I was pretty bored occasionally, but there are some pretty sweet moments. Like, when it hits really good. Alright, Alright, top 15 time, and we enter with This Will Destroy You, self-titled, from Head of Buckets. They're my favorite post-rock band, and if this is what I have to do to finally get you to listen to them, then so be it. Well, I'll tell you one thing. This is not the first time I heard it. I heard it several years ago, where I was like, because they were sitting on my computer for so long, I was like, I might as well listen to it. So I listened to the first 3, and I don't remember it. But then going back to it again, I actually listened to this twice, and I'm going to be honest, it did drop 2 spots. Because I think it's super Explosions inspired, but maybe a bit too much, because there's a lot of ambience, especially with the second track. It was like 7 minutes, and it was just atmospheric droning, and that's not really my thing, although the first track was really good. And like, my problems are really showcased in Rio Grande, the Rio Grande song, because the way it starts is so good. Like, it builds, but then it just drops out, and then it like does ambience for several more minutes, and then it builds up again. And if they just took out that middle chunk, I would be all for it. But yeah, also the ending track is pretty good. So there's a lot of stuff I dug, but there was a lot of like moments where I'm just like, I don't care. Especially like, man, I was like playing this song, like this band in my car, and I was on shuffle, and I was like hitting tracks, and there was just nothing. And I hit next track, and there was nothing. Like, it's so quiet and slow starting, like all the songs, where I'm just, you know, it's definitely not my favorite post stuff, but it is pretty good, and there's a lot of aspects that I did really like. And up next from Brad, he doesn't leave comments, but Josh's brother, everyone knows Josh. Chances are you've seen Josh on the show at some point. He's his brother, and he wanted to give me The Merman. I forget what the full title is, but something about California Roadshow. It's a really long title. Okay? And this is basically just surfer rock shit. Like, it's super damn long, but it's a good ride. You know, with Emmylou Rides and Little Stinky Kitty, those were my favorite songs off the album. Like, they're much more jammy and riding than the others. But yeah, everything else, it was pretty solid stuff. Okay, coming up next from Sean Taylor, we have Marbles by Marillion. This is my personal favorite album by this band, and based on the videos you've made, I think you might enjoy this album and band as well. At least I hope so. Yeah, we've got another double album on our hands. This is, yeah, definitely a lot. But I did hear there was a lot of influences on here. There was like some Pink Floyd elements, and it's a bit of Beatles stuff going on too. I think I like the second disc a little more. With Don't Hurt Yourself, that's my favorite song off this album. But to be honest, I was a little distracted because I was listening to this album while I was beating Mass Effect 3. So my focus was like 70-30. But what I did hear, it was pretty solid. Like, maybe they're considered prog, but like I did like the sound that they were doing. Like I said, I like the influences I can hear in here, and yeah, it was just another solid experience that I should probably listen to again because I wasn't 100% there listening to it the first time. And from Undefined Jellybean, we have Angel Dust by Faith No More. So one of the greatest alternative metal releases of the 90s, and maybe one of the greatest alternative metal releases ever. This album is great. It's just another masterpiece. It's a mix of alternative, heavy metal, funk, bit of avant-garde, and a little bit of hip-hop. I know you don't really like rap, but this is worth it. Yeah. What I love about this album is despite it being a metal rock band, the guitar isn't the focus like usual. A lot of attention goes to the bass, drums, keyboards, etc. Not to mention how great of a frontman Mike Patton is. Dude is crazy. Just imagine G.G. Allen without the feces and Bruce Dickinson on Crocodile. So what you said about like the fact that the guitar isn't the focus, that's why post-rock is pretty kick-ass. Because, yeah, they're there, but there's a lot more going on. Other than just, you know, the hair metal days of guitar gets all the ladies, you know. that fucking stereotype. But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Mike Patton, because I know Mike Patton from a little band called Mr. Bungle. Now, this is like the music equivalent of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, where it's just fucking crazy. This album is bananas, alright? It's just one of the wildest things I think I ever heard in my life. But yeah, so going in, I knew Mike Patton, so I kind of knew what to expect. But yeah, I mean, we got like RV, that's a pretty interesting song. Smaller and Smaller got some good old thrash elements. Everything's Ruined was good. Malpractice was even more brutal than Smaller. Yeah, there was a lot of good jams on here. It's very varied. Like you said, there's a lot of stuff, like different kinds of styles. It's not all great, but it was a fun album nonetheless. And just not making the top 10, we have Josh. Like I said, here comes Josh again with King Buffalo, Regenerator. He gave me a different album than Along the Mountain, but shit's still the same thing. A psychedelic rock stoner rock trio, a very atmospheric band, definitely one of my new favorite bands to come out of recent years alongside Earthless. This album is like acid sonic journey, definitely recommend. And honestly, I think this band sounds like it would slap live. I think this would be like a really good show. Vocals are very Ozzy-esque. And yeah, it's a cool jam band. Like most songs are built on one riff. So it's not my favorite kind of jammy, but it's short, sweet, and well performed. Like it's like one or two riffs, but like what they do with those one or two riffs is pretty solid. But now it's time to get to the nitty-gritty and the cream of the crops, as they would say. Because now we're about to start our top 10. And kicking it off is gonna be... we have Judgement by Anathema, and yes, it has been several days since I filmed a couple seconds ago because my camera only has an hour of battery life, so I had to wait. But anyway, we're back and we gotta get this shit done. And this one comes from a name with a lot of Z's. No thank you. One of the albums that changed my life. And yeah, I don't have much to say on this, but I loved pretty much everything about it. Like, the vocals, the riffs, everything. I think the title track was my favorite song because it got, like, super heavy at the end, and that was awesome. And if this band was just a little heavier, like, if it was just a little notch above, like, if the rest of it was like the ending of Judgement, this would really be my shit. So let me know if they have an album that goes a little harder, because I think I would be listening to it all the time. Alright, here's another big one. Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche. This one comes from Manual Music. Nice name there. I forgot, he gave me something that I already did. So I was like, give me something else. And now we're here. Queensryche. So I've heard, I don't know the whole story behind this band, but I heard Mr. Jeff Tate isn't the greatest guy, and I don't know enough about it, so that didn't like detract it from me. But I did find his vocals mildly annoying, which I couldn't put it higher because of that, but still it's number 9 because like everything else on it is really great. The title track has a really cool ass main riff. Speak might be my favorite on here because pretty much everything between the drums, the riffs, and even the vocals on this one really worked for me. Needle Eyes, I mean, everything was pretty much on point for me besides the vocals, which pretty much makes me compare this album to like Metropolis Part 2, except it's just a little less intense because, you know, with the likes of Portnoy and Petrucci just being on a whole nother level. This is kind of along those same lines, except I would take Tate over Labrie any day of the week. And the last album I listened to for this list was Frank Zappa's Chic Yerboiti. I don't know, whatever. And I didn't intentionally save this one for last, but as I was approaching the end, I was like, we'll save Zappa for last, because I'm somewhat aware of his style, and I think regardless, it was going to be an amusing listen, and that it was. But this comes from Diamonds 11, who we're going to be here for a bit. Frank Zappa is an American musician, is probably most well known for his absurd amount of albums, 62 in total, not including the rest, which, yeah, 62 might sound a lot, but we literally just talked about Buckethead, which has almost 500, so 62 ain't too bad. And his very unique sound. While he has an insane amount of variety in his music ranging from rock, pop, jazz, blues, doo-wop, avant-garde, classical, electronica, and even metal, one thing that all of his music has in common is that it all has a very unique, unapproachable, and weird sound to it. This album in particular is probably his most conventional and normal, and is one of my favorites of his. The main thing that first wrote me into this guy, starting with this album, is how despite the really stupid and ridiculous lyrics, the guitar work is incredibly advanced and complicated. He was also a hardcore workaholic, not only releasing a 120-minute rock opera in the same year, but also 2 instrumental orchestra jazz albums in 1979. Truly, only listening to his albums doesn't do him justice, and you really need to listen to a couple to truly understand how incredible Frank Zappa truly is. Yeah, normal. And then we have songs like Broken Hearts Are for Assholes. It goes from jammy as shit to literal shit talk. Bobby Brown is just like, what the fuck? This album is ludicrous. Like the live stuff, I don't care for too much because it's like part live, part studio. But every normal song is just crazy. Like, I knew what I was getting into going in, but I still wasn't ready enough. I think his writing approach is you take a whole pound of sugar and just dump it down your throat and start writing. Because like, it jumps from so many different things. Like, there's a Weird Al song, Genius in France, where he parodies the Zappa style, and just like Weird Al does, he nails it. It's just like a bunch of different stuff all happening at once. And, you know, for a double album, it really doesn't feel like a double album because it keeps you so entertained the entire time. I really liked it. I don't know. Let me know what else I should listen to because, like you said, 62 albums is a lot. I don't want to just, you know, pick a random one. Let me know what's like the big ones. And from Uri Heap, it's Demons and Wizards from Fightin' Phil, a prog rock classic. Uri Heap, in my opinion, is the most underrated rock band ever. Lee, who played drums on Blizzard of Oz by Ozzy, does a damn good job on this album. The singing is phenomenal, bass is thundering, guitar is heavy, the keyboards are just magical. Simply just an amazing album. Also, Uri Heap is coming out with a new album soon, and I hope you'll do an album ranking by them. I did listen to Chaos in Color, because I listened to Uri Heap years ago, and from what I remember, they were really good. Like, they were one of the main standouts from that long list of random prog bands we listened to. And this album is no exception. It's just a really, really solid album. And it's just, of course it is, because what I remember from Heap is just they just were just really good at what they did. And then, we have songs like Easy Listening, which was a cool shuffle song. Rainbow Demon, like you said, the keys are magical. I think they carry that song. It's short, sweet, and easy listening. Easy, just like the song, it's easy listening. And as far as a ranking by them, I'm very hesitant to do bands with more than like 15 albums, especially ones that I'm not overly familiar with. And considering I haven't heard them in probably like 4 or 5 years, that might take a while, but I would definitely be open to doing it. It's just a shame their new album came out last month when I was trying to do all this other stuff, and I didn't have enough time to listen to everything before it happened. But who knows? Maybe they won't take forever with a new album, like Jethro Tull put something out again next year. And from Young Nasty Man 227, we have Allison Changes, Facelift. The only reason I have this is because I was buying something from some CD site or whatever, and I was like $5 away from free shipping, and I was like, okay, is there any album for $5? And this was $5. So I basically got it for free. I bought it before I even heard it. I listened to it a while ago, and then, just now again. And, it's really good. But, anyway, I don't know what made me decide to listen to this album. I just kind of put it on one day for no reason, and I was just blown away. Most people prefer their next album, Dirt, but I find Facelift to be a much more interesting record. Okay, well, as some of you might have saw, someone else gave me Dirt, so we're talking 2 Allison Changes albums right now, or today. And I haven't talked about Dirt yet, so considering both these albums are at least in the top 6, that's when you got some good shit. That's when you have some good stuff. But anyway, we have Bleed the Freak. It has a really cool-ass clean riff, and I think I really like the chorus in that song. Love, Hate, Love is pretty good. Put You Down has a really fun-ass riff. And then we have Man in the Box, which I always hate when the most popular shit is my favorite, because I really like when I have that deep cut that's my favorite. But, dude, you cannot top that chorus. Every single time it comes on, straight chills. Especially the last one, when he goes even higher and sustains his note for longer. Oh, man. The rest of the song is okay. Like, I'm not crazy about the verse or anything, but that goddamn chorus is masterful. And I'll touch on this album again when we talk about Dirt. But honestly, between the two of them, I think Facelift would be my go-to. Like, I think overall I like it better. But there are some major highlights in the other one, which we'll talk about. But yes, this is a damn good album too. And we are top 5 territory, and we are kicking it off with Franz Ferdinand's self-titled from Scumbag Productions. Since you love my suggestion from last time, the Arctic Monkeys album, you would probably like this too. Well, if I remember correctly, that album was number 3 last time, and now you're at number 5. So I'll tell you what, bro, you're kind of killing it. Because yes, this is another banger. And I gotta be honest, before listening to this, I actually thought Franz Ferdinand was the name of just the singer. I thought that was just his name and not the band. So that was kind of funny. But I'll be honest, the first 2 tracks kind of had me worried. But once Take Me Out started, which obviously I knew that song for like ever. And my God, the chorus, the bass line in the chorus is seriously one of, my favorite bass lines ever. You know, that simple but so effective walk down. Yeah, it's really good. I really like it. But yeah, I don't have any other specific song highlights, but the German title one, I thought that had some really nice notes in it. Yeah, man, it's just overall just really great. Not crazy about the first 2 songs, but everything else, it was just good. Just like your Arctic Monkeys album. I didn't have any like specific standouts, but it was just a fun ass album to listen to. And that's what this was. So good, really, really good pick. And up next we have I, Robot by the Alan Parsons Project, coming from Joel L. This is the second album by the band. In my opinion, their best. Their production is just fantastic, and like the other albums, it goes through a lot of different emotions. Also, it's worth mentioning that before the project, Mr. Parsons worked as a sound engineer for albums like Dark Side and Abbey Road. Ooh, happy listening, hope you like it. Well, it is number 4, so I definitely liked it. And as far as brand new songs I never heard before, I Wouldn't Want to Be Like You, I think is at least like top 5 favorite ones. I don't know which one, but I really, really love I Wouldn't Want to Be Like You. From that intro, that straight up sounds like it's like a spy thriller scene, or like someone's being followed. And then when it kicks in with the guitars and it's just like the singer's just killing it. Oh man, it's a really fun song. If the whole album was like that one, it would probably be fighting number 1 for its spot. But yeah, besides that, Genesis was good too. Total Eclipse was kind of scary. And he worked on Dark Side, so Total Eclipse, that's kind of entertaining. It's cool, there's both 2 songs called that. And I also thought it was pretty cool how every song was sung by someone else. But yes, it is all about that lead single again. But I totally understand why it was the lead single, because it kicks ass. And with that, we enter our top 3. So the bronze medal of number 3 goes to... Oh, you're probably pretty happy, aren't you? Because Frampton Comes Alive is number 3. And this, of course, comes from the lovely Haley with one of the best-selling live albums of all time. So, I couldn't find a clip of it, but there's a joke in Wayne's World 2 where he talks about this and how it was like mailed to every suburban house with a free sample of Tide. I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, it's a live album and just full of really great songs. Got some bops on here that, to be honest, I didn't even know it was him. Like Show Me the Way and Do You Feel Like We Do. I didn't even know that was him. But of course, we have, oh my god, what was that song? Baby, I Love Your Way. That's the other, like, big one. But besides that, we have Doobie Way and Jumping Jack Flash. That was pretty fun. Another double album, because of course. And yeah, it's just a really solid performance of all these songs that I'm not overly familiar with, but it was just really good. And that's all it takes to be this high, is just to be consistently really damn good. And which leads us into our runner-up. And sorry, bro, you probably thought you were gonna win it, but almost. We have Everything Remains As It Never Was by Eluveite, and this comes from Ignis, aka Alex. So close, man, so close. Eluveite are a band from Switzerland that combine elements of folk and melodic death metal. This is their strongest album, in my opinion, and funnily enough, that I've gotten good responses to from my non-metalhead friends, probably because it's got a very solid blend of brutal and melodic going on. And really, a lot of this album reminds me of the kind of stuff that Trivium would write, except this has like flutes and shit all over it. Automatically, it was just like my kind of shit from the first song. Like, these are my favorite type of scream vocals. Kingdom Come Undone was probably my favorite, but like every single song was pretty damn good. And just kind of like Anathema with Judgement, like, this is my kind of shit. Just really damn good. Every song was kicking ass. And be prepared, because we might be talking about this number one album for like 10 straight minutes, because I have a lot to say. And I mentioned earlier how there were 2 albums by a band that made it this high. And of course, the other album is our number one. And the winner of the 3rd edition of Rank Your Albums is Metal Rabbit with Allison Changes, Dirt from 92. I don't have the greatest interest in the grunge genre myself, and it probably won't peak higher in my own interest, but this album helped me appreciate grunge more than I first thought. I grabbed a handful of grunge bands some time ago and went down the discography per band to explore the genre. The only ones that interested me at the end were Nirvana and Allison Changes. To me, Dirt feels like the perfect grunge record I could have wished for. Close second would be Facelift. Allison Changes has an almost perfect lineup of albums in their discography, and their album Dirt is, in my opinion, the strongest album they have ever released. I didn't feel like I wasted any time listening to what they have to offer, nor this album. Okay. This was like the 6th or 7th album I listened to in this thing, and that was... what, maybe 3 weeks ago? I have not skipped a goddamn day since listening to it the first time. Listening to at least one song off this album. I have been so addicted to this record. In fact, this is my recommendation to everyone. Listen to Dirt, because holy dear God. Before I get into the big ones, let me talk about the other songs, okay? Rain When I Die has some really great riffs in it. Sick Man also does. The main riff is pretty brutal. Angry Chair, I really like how much heavier that one is. It actually kind of sounds low-key like some Pantera shit. Bass in it is especially sick. And of course, Them Bones was the big, or one of the big songs, but not, to be honest, not like my favorite one out of those. And towards like the back half with Godsmack and Untitled, I didn't care for those too much. I mean, Untitled was just like a 40-second interlude, But Hate to Feel, I honestly don't really like at all. But beyond that, let me tell you. Rooster, I recognized only for the, yeah, they've come to snuff the rooster. Like, that line only. I was like, ooh, I recognize that, but nothing else. So this was pretty much a new listen to me. When I said I Wouldn't Want to Be Like You is in my top 5, I can't give you a number because I think these 3 songs are my top 3. Because Down in a Hole, I swear, that shit could put a man in tears. There's that meme I might do where it's like girls were like, oh, why don't men get emotional? It's just some dude listening to Down in a Hole with like tears. Because, man, you know me, I don't get into lyrics a lot. When I hear a good lyric, it really stands out. And of course, I'm talking about the chorus. You know, down in a hole, feeling so small, down in a hole, losing all control, like losing self-control. I try to fly, but my wings are so denied. Oh, fuck, man, that's really good. Yeah, I love the guitars, like the riffs in that song, the choruses. It's just a really sad, sweet song. And then there's the big one, okay? Then there's Wood. Now, believe it or not, I've never heard this song before. So this was the first time I heard it. And like I just mentioned, I have not listened to that song every day for about 3 weeks. And I doubt it's going to change. Because everything in that song is perfect. From like the tom intro and the verses where he's like shuffling the hi-hat and the dual vocals from Staley and Cantrell. And then you get to the chorus, and again with the lyrics, you know, into the flood again, same old trip it was back then, so I made a big mistake, try to see it once my way. And just like Man in the Box, the last chorus, he sings it better than the other ones. And every time it happens, just gives me shivers. And then the whole ending of that song, when it goes like down heavy on the, I fucking love when songs do that, where they're like chords, but then it ends with it like really low. Ooh, that sounds really good. Man. And I literally, just before I started filming this second part, I just watched like this 40-minute documentary about like Lane Staley's download spiral, because I didn't really know. I knew about like the drug stuff, but I didn't know it was 8-year fucking process. I thought it was just like that, he just died, but it was like a long fucking gradual thing. And it just really brings out the desperation in like his vocals, especially with like the MTV performances of this song, and especially with Down in a Hole. I don't know which one I like better, but they're both really good. Yeah, I've been listening to this shit nonstop, so I knew it was going to be number 1. I was like, unless something completely blows my ass away, this is going to be number 1, and I knew it from the moment I heard it. So, congratulations, Metal Rabbit. Expect our Allison Changes ranking in about a week, because, yeah, I've already started. I am very ready, and I probably won't talk about this album this long again. So, I just want to get all that out, because, yeah, this, like I mentioned, I think Facelift I like better overall, because there's not really any downtime, versus this one where there's like 3 songs I don't really care for. But the heights that Wood, Rooster, and Down in a Hole reach are just beyond anything on Facelift, I think. Besides the Man in the Box chorus. I swear to God, if Man in the Box was on this album, it would be a done deal. There would be no chance anything would be better than this album. But anyway, that's enough. I'm sorry if this is really long, but that's what happens when I have 37 albums to listen to. But yes, please join me next week for my Allison Changes ranking, and then it's going to be my 3rd anniversary where I'm going to look at all the bands I did this year again, and then there's going to be a lot of shit coming out, okay? Because there's about to be another marathon starting March 1st, so get ready for that. But until then, thanks for watching, everyone, and thank you for 700 subs. I'm gonna hit 1,000 this year. It's gonna happen.